Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day today. This video will be for Module 5, working with Excel tables, pivot tables, and pivot charts. Again, this is on page EX319 in your textbook. It's the review assignment for Module 5, working with Excel tables, and pivot charts. The file that we will be using, the workbook we will be using, is called July. So if necessary, you can pause this video, go out to the student files on Blackboard, and look for July. Again, we will be using that workbook for this review assignment. We have not used this workbook before. Okay, if you need to, pause the video, go get it, and then you can restart this video. I've got mine saved on my desktop, so I'm going to continue along here by opening up the workbook. The workbook has two worksheets. We have the documentation worksheet and we have the sales data worksheet as of right now. So step 1, open the July workbook located in, and I've already done that, I've opened it up. Step 2, in the documentation worksheet, enter your name and the date. So in B3, I'm going to enter my name. And in B4, I'm going to type today's date, which is 06/20/2019. Okay, I've already taken care of 2 steps, just right there. Step 3, in the sales data worksheet, so I'm going to click on that worksheet to get that one open. Freeze the top row so that the headers remain on the screen as you scroll. The issue here is that row 1 contains my headings for my group, my columns. As I scroll down to look at other data that might be further down, I lose my headings. Row 1 is no longer visible. And that can be a problem if you've got a whole bunch of columns of data that is hard to discriminate. Okay? So what I want to do is freeze row 1. That means that no matter how far I scroll down, row 1 will be frozen and will always be there on my screen. There's 2 rules that we have to know about freeze panes. One is you always want to be in the row below the rows you want to freeze. So if I want to freeze row 1, I want to be in row 2 to do so. If I want to freeze rows 1 through 5, I have to be in row 6 to do it. Always in the row below the rows you want to freeze. If I want to freeze columns, let's say when I scroll to the right, I always want column A to be visible. You always want to be in the column to the right of the columns you want to freeze. So I would be in column B to freeze column A. If I told you to freeze columns A through C, then you would want to be in column D to do that. So it's the row below and the column to the right. So for example, if I said I want you to freeze the first 3 rows in columns A through C, you would have to be in D4 to do that. 4 because you're going to freeze the 3 rows above it. D because you're going to freeze the columns to the left of it. Okay? So remember, always be in the column to the right of the columns you want to freeze and the row below the rows you want to freeze. That's very important because I will have students that will be way down here when they turn on freeze panes, and they'll freeze all kinds of rows and all kinds of columns. And they will only get half the points possible for that on their homework or on the test because they haven't shown me that they know exactly where to be when they do freeze panes. So for this case, they only want me to freeze row 1, no columns, so I would be in A2 to do this. Then I go to View, the View ribbon, and I click on Freeze Panes, Freeze Panes. It puts a non-printing line. In other words, if I were to print this line doesn't print, but it does put one on my screen so that I can see a line between rows 1 and 2, so that as I scroll down, row 1 is frozen. It is always on my screen. So that is step number 3. In the sales data worksheet, freeze the top row so that the headers remain on the screen as you scroll. Step 4, make a copy of the sales data worksheet and then rename the copied worksheet as July Data. Hint, to make a copy of the worksheet, press and hold the Control key as you drag the Sheet tab to the right of the Sales Data Sheet tab. So if I put my pointer on sales data, I've never done it this way to be perfectly honest with you. If I put my pointer right on sales data, hold down my Control key and drag it to the right, I'm not really getting anything. Let me read that again. To make a copy of the worksheet, press and hold the Control key as you drag the Sheet tab to the right. That's not working for me. All right, so I'm not sure what that's doing. So I'm going to show you my way. If you right-click, you can do Move or Copy. I'm going to choose Move or Copy. I'm going to say Create a Copy. If you don't check this box, it's going to only move it, and you're not going to be creating a copy of it. And then I want to move it to the end. So I'm creating a copy of the current worksheet, sales data, and I'm going to move it to the end. I click OK, and there's my new worksheet. Now they want me to rename this one July Data. So I'm going to double click on it, type July Data, and hit Enter. And now I have a brand new worksheet called July Data that I can do the next project on. All right, so that was step 4. Step 5, in the July Data worksheet, unfreeze the top row. All I got to do is go back to View, Freeze Panes, and Unfreeze Panes. Okay? And that imaginary line goes away, that non-printing line, so I've turned off the Freeze Panes. Step 5 is completed. We've already completed 5 steps. Step 6, create an Excel table for the sales data in the July Data worksheet. This is known as a list. When you have one row of titles, if you will, column labels, and then row after row after row of data, this is known as a list. But we can convert it to a table as well so that we have additional options available to us. To convert this as a table, you just have to be somewhere within your list. It doesn't matter where. Does not matter where, as long as you're somewhere in your list. Then you're going to go to the Insert ribbon. Insert ribbon, and you're going to go right there, the third option from the left. It says Table. I'm going to click on that. I verify that the range that it has selected, and the range should be absolutely correct if you were somewhere within your list. Leave the check mark as My Table has headers, and then click OK. And you have now converted this into a table. It's no longer considered a list. It is now a table. And we have a whole nother ribbon up here called Table Tools Design that is only for this table. And we would not have seen that if we had not converted this into a table. Okay? So, step 6, create an Excel table for the sales data in the July Data worksheet. We just did that. Step 7, format the Excel table with table style medium 4. So again, as long as I'm somewhere within my table, because if I click out here, you notice that ribbon goes away. Once I click back in my table, the Table Tools Design ribbon comes back. Here are my table styles, and it wants me to pick medium 4. So if necessary, there's a little more button sitting right here. It's a line with an arrow pointing down. Here's medium. And they want medium 4, so as I put my pointer on there, that's medium 3, and that's medium 4. So I click, and I've now changed that to a table style of medium 4. And then change the amount field to the accounting format with 2 decimal places. So I could technically select the letter E and do it for every cell for column E, but I'm going to choose to select my range of E2 down to E106. And again, the way I did that, we should be familiar with this by now, is to click in E2, get the white plus sign, hold down the left side of your mouse and drag down to select a range of cells. And I'm going to go all the way down to 106. Okay? Some of this stuff I'm going to assume that you know since we're through Chapter 4 already, and plus you've had CIT 110 as a prerequisite for this. So some of this you should be very much aware of already. So I apologize if you don't know it. You'll have to look it up in the book for certain things, but I will cover most of the stuff that I would think that you need help on. Then change the amount field to the accounting format. That's the $ sign on the home ribbon. This $ sign right here, that's your accounting style. So they want me to click that. And with 2 decimal places, which is what comes up by default, so I don't have to change that. And we've just completed step number 7. Moving right along fairly quickly here. Step number 8, rename the Excel table as July TBL. That does not mean rename the worksheet. That is totally different. This is rename the Excel table. On the Table Tools Design ribbon, all the way to the left, it says Table Name, and the generic name that has been given so far is Table 1. I'm going to delete that and replace it with July TBL. And now I have renamed this table. And I misspelled it, so let me go back up and change that. July TBL. Okay, that was step 8. Step 9, make the following changes to the July TBL table. This is now referred to as the July TBL table. Add a record for 7/31, so I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom because I'm going to enter a new record. Okay, so I'm going to click in cell A107 and I'm going to type 7/31/2017. Use my tab key, or you can just click over in B107. I'm going to type Monday. Notice that when you type the M, it does what's called an autofill, which it automatically filled in with Monday because it saw a bunch of Mondays up above it. I hit enter to accept that, or the right arrow key. I'm going to put 4 in for my sales ID. The business is Group Home. Again, when I type the letter G, it does the autofill. I can accept what's in there, hit my right arrow key, and in here, I don't have to worry about typing the $ or the decimal. Well, I do have to do the decimal point, but I don't have to type the $. So it's 256.52, hit enter, and we've just completed 9A, step 9A. 9B, edit the record for individual on 7/27, so I'm going to scroll up a little bit, 2017. So 7/27 individual. So that would be this one right here. 7/27 individual. They want me to change the, let's see, edit by changing the amount from 462.74 to 492.05. Hit enter, and I've completed step 9B. Step 9C, remove any duplicate records. On the Table Tools Design ribbon, we have table name, which we did in the previous step. Right next to it, we have remove duplicates. If I click on that, it says to delete duplicate values, select one or more columns that contain duplicates. I'm going to just leave them all checked. No, actually, we probably, let's see, remove any duplicate records. It doesn't say what to check it on. I'm going to say that if we delete, we'll leave all the columns selected and click OK. It says one duplicate value found and removed. Okay, click OK, and no longer do we have that duplicate record. So you want to leave them all checked so that it's actually checking all the columns to decide if there's something that is duplicated. Maybe somebody did a data entry error and actually typed it in twice by accident. So it's called remove duplicates. Pretty neat stuff so far. That was 9C, so we're complete with step number 9. And I would say that none of this has been really difficult to this point. Okay, step 10. Make a copy of the July data worksheet and then rename the copied worksheet as sort by sale date. So again, I'm going to right click on July date, go to move or copy, move to the end, check the create a copy, and click OK. And now I have this one. They want me to rename it, so I'm going to double click, and I'm going to call this one sort by sale date. And hit enter to accept it. So now I'm up to 4 worksheets. We've added 2 from the original. In the sort by sale date worksheet, sort the July table by sale date, displaying the newest sales first, and then by amount, displaying the largest amount first. One of the biggest problems that my students have with this one is they think they mean sort by one column first, sort by sales what was it? Just sort by sale date first, and then do another sort where you're going to sort by amount. And that's not at all what they want you to do. What they're indicating to you is they want you to sort by 2 columns at the same time. We're going to sort by sale date first and then by amount. So make sure when you're doing your homework that you pay attention to that, because I hate to write down in the comments box, this required a multi-level sort. And you don't know how many times I've had to put that in the comment box because people don't watch my videos, etc. So this is a multi-level sort because we're sorting by 2 columns at the same time. This requires me to go to the data ribbon, and I'm going to go to the sort dialog box. I can't use these, the A to Z, Z to A. That's only if I'm sorting by 1 column at a time. But this is 2 or more columns. I have to go to the sort box. The first one I want to sort by is sale date. So I say sort by sale date. And then it says, in the sort by sale date, displaying the newest sales first. So over here where it says order, I'm going to drop it down and say newest to oldest based on the instructions. And then by amount. So I have to add a level. Very important. I pick amount here. And here it wants it largest first. So I'm going to do largest to smallest. Okay? So multi-level sort, and you can do as many things, almost as many levels as you want. Typically, I think the limit is 15, which we will never even come close to in this class. Click OK, and so what it does is it orders it by sale, sorts it by sale date first, and then within sale date, it will do the amounts in descending order, and then do the same thing for the 29th here. Put these in order, largest to smallest, etc. So we're sorting by 2 columns at the same time. Okay, good job. That was step number 10. Step 11, make a copy of the July data worksheet and then rename the copy worksheet as sort by day. So I'm going to right click, move our copy, create a copy, move to end. Okay, this is getting a little redundant, but we know now how to do this. I'm going to double click, and this one they want me to call it sort by day. And hit enter. Okay. In the sort by day worksheet, sort the sales data by day. Use the custom list order of Sunday, Monday for the chronological sort. Then by business, A to Z, and then by amount. I'm sorting by 3 columns at the same time. So again, I have to go to the data ribbon and the sort dialog box here. You can delete your levels, delete one level and start from scratch if you want. First, I'm going to sort by, it says in the sort by data worksheet, sort by the sales data by the day. So I'm going to drop this down, and I'm going to sort by day. Now, it says, in parentheses, use the custom list order of Sunday, Monday for the chronological order. Over here, we have order Z to A and A to Z, but we also have a possibility of going to something called custom list, is what they're referring to. So I click on custom list, and they want me to use of Sunday, Monday spelled out. Not the abbreviated, but the spelled out one, because that's the way it's displayed in our table. Monday, Saturday, Friday. So I want to use that option and click OK. That's known as a custom sort, of which we picked from one that they had already created. We can create as many of our own custom lists as we want as we go through the usage of Excel. All right, then it says, then by business. So I'm going to add a level, choose business. And this one they have said A to Z, which it currently is, so I don't have to worry about it. And then I got to add a third level, because then it says, and then by amount. And the amount they want from smallest to largest, which again is okay. I click OK, and I have completed step number 11. Okay, good job, everybody. Step 12. Make a copy of the July data worksheet and then rename the copied worksheet as filter to omit filter to omit restaurant. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to choose move or copy, create a copy, move to end. Click OK. I'm going to double click to rename this one, and they want me to call it filter to omit restaurant. Now, I do need to make a special point of mentioning to you, you must, I'll say it again, you must complete the work on the proper worksheets. Because as I go to grade this, I'm going to be looking for things on the right worksheets. And if you do it on a different worksheet, you may or may not get credit for it. It depends on whether I notice it or anything else. But don't depend on me to find it. You need to complete things on the right worksheets. That is a must, or you're going to lose some points perhaps just because I can't find it. Okay? So just a heads up there. So step 12, make a copy of the July data worksheet and then rename the copied worksheet as filter to omit restaurant. In the filter to omit restaurant worksheet, filter the July table to display sales for all businesses except restaurant. So I'm going to drop the arrow next to business. This allows me to filter right here. I'm going to drop that arrow down. I'm going to uncheck select all, and they say except restaurant. So I'm going to check all the other boxes, the other 3, but I'm going to exclude restaurant. I click OK, and it filters it out so that I do not see anything in D where they are a restaurant. It doesn't delete it. It simply hides the row. If you notice, it goes from row 16 to row 22 because the rows are hidden. 17, 18, etc. are hidden because they are a business of restaurant, and we don't want to see those. We're filtering them out. Again, not deleting the rows, but filtering them out at the moment, hiding them. All right. I'm going to save this just because I don't want to take a chance of losing it. So I'm going to click my Save Diskette. Okay. Now, I'm on to step number 11. In the filter to omit restaurant worksheet, so we're staying in the same worksheet that we just worked in, insert the total row to calculate the average amount of sales for the filtered data. Change the label in the total row to average. Sort the filter data by descending order by amount. Okay, a couple of things here then. Insert the total row. Well, when you're working with a table, if you go to Table Tools Design, we have an option here of total row. This is the only way that you should be doing this. You don't go down to the bottom of your table and type the word total, etc. No, it will create the total row for us. So we check that box. That's very important. Again, I will have students that will try to cheat the system, if you will, and they will come down here and type this, and you do not need to do that when you're working with a table. Now it says insert the total row to calculate the average amount of sales. Now, you don't want to guarantee that this is the average. As a matter of fact, I don't think that is the average. So we click here, drop the arrow down, and pick average. Okay, what was showing there was the sum, and that's not what they wanted. They wanted the average. Change the label to reflect average. Okay, now if I drop the arrow down, if I pick average, you're going to get the average for the sale date, which is not correct. So we literally have to type the word average to change the label there. Okay? That is step 13. You're doing well. Step 14. Split the filter to omit restaurant worksheet into 2 panes above the last row of the table. So you always want to be on the row below where you want the split to occur. So I want to be in row 107 because it says split the filter to omit restaurant worksheet into 2 panes above the last row of the table. Display the sales records in the top pane and display only the total row in the bottom pane. So I want to be in A107 when I do this. I'm going to go to the View ribbon. This is where we found the freeze panes, and I'm going to go Split this time. It put a split between the 2 sections there. Each one has its own scroll bar. So this scroll bar at the top would be controlling all of this data. The one on the bottom would be controlling this, but I don't need to do the scroll bars because it's looking exactly the way I want it, with only the total row being in the bottom pane here. Okay? So that was step number 14. 15. Make a copy of the July data worksheet and then rename the copy worksheet filter by sales ID. So again, right click, move or copy, create a copy, move to the end, click OK. Little redundancy here. I'm going to rename this by double clicking on it and typing in filter by sales ID. Hit enter. In the filter by sales ID worksheet, insert a slicer for the sales ID column. Okay, insert a slicer. Slicer is one of the newest features. I've had students in the past go, Mr. Whiteman, I don't have a slicer. That's because you're attempting to take this course using something, a much earlier version of Excel. And up to this point, they probably were able to get away with most of it, except for perhaps the quick analysis tool. But this is a newer tool. If I go to the Table Tools Design ribbon, we have this thing called Insert Slicer, which acts very much like a filter. So I'm going to click on that. It says in the instructions, okay, make a copy of the July data worksheet, filter by sales ID. In the filter by sales ID worksheet, insert a slicer for the sales ID column. So I'm going to check the box for sales ID and then click OK. And I have, if I scroll down a little bit to let you see it a little bit, there is my sales ID. Okay, let's continue on here before I do anything else. It says move the slicer to row 1. That's what I thought. So I'm going to take my sales ID and I'm going to put my pointer right on sales ID, and I get 4 arrows, left, right, up, and down, like a suction cup. I'm going to click and hold down the left side of my mouse and just start dragging that up. And it's not going to go. So I'm going to do it a little bit at a time. I was trying to see if it would scroll up on its own. It's not going to do that for me. So this could be a little tedious to get that up there. Some of you might be saying, Mr. Whiteman, there's a better way to do that. But this is going to work. I'll just take my time here, get that up there. Okay. But I got to get up to row 1 eventually. I'm at almost there. Row 16, 8. Okay. We're getting there. Row 1. All right. So it says, move the slicer to row 1. Format the slicer with the slicer style light 3. So when you insert a slicer, we get yet another ribbon. Slicer tools options. You will not see that if you click outside your slicer. You have to have your slicer selected. Okay? It says slicer style light 3. So here's my styles. There is my style light 3. So I'll click on it. Okay? Notice it changed to the same color as the format of the table. Change the slicer's height to 1.9. So I'm going to come up here to size. Do the height to be 1.9. And the width to 1.25. So highlight this to 1.25. Okay. Then it says use the slicer to display sales for sales ID 3. So if I click on sales ID 3, notice that I'm now filtering my list to only see those, column C here, to see sales ID 3. But then it says also sales ID 5. So now I hold down my control key and click on 5, and that allows me to do 2 separate sales ID. You select one, hold down your control key, and select the second one, and you can even do that if you needed a third one, but that's all they're asking for. So that is step number 15. 16. Make a copy of the July data worksheet. Okay? July data worksheet. So I'm going to scroll way back here. There's my July data worksheet. So I'm going to, and actually I was supposed to have done that for step 15. Make a copy of the July data worksheet, but it worked out. We're fine. But yeah, you might want to pay more attention than what your teacher's doing, which worksheet to copy. So this time I'm going to do it right. Make a copy of the July data worksheet. So I'm going to right-click on that one, move or copy, create a copy, move to end, click OK. The reason they're having you do that particular one, July data, is to make sure that you didn't have any of the other options being completed on it. So then rename this one July subtotals. So July subtotals. Okay. All right. Make a copy of the blah, blah, blah as July subtotals. In the July subtotals worksheet, convert the July table to a range and then sort the range by the business column in ascending order. Okay, so what I need to do here is I need to convert what is now a table back to a list, if you will. So on the Table Tools Design ribbon, you have this Convert to Range. That's what we need to use here. So I'm going to click on Convert to Range. It's just confirming that that's what I want. I say yes. And notice that that ribbon goes away for Table Tools Design because it's no longer considered a table. It is now back to a list. Okay? So that's how you do it. You go to the Table Tools Design ribbon and convert to range. Then sort the range by the business column in ascending order. Now, if you're only sorting by one column, whether it's a list or a table, you only have to click somewhere in this column. It does not matter where. And now we can go to the data ribbon and actually use the A to Z to Z to A, and it will sort everything. Trust me, it will sort everything. Okay, and that's important to understand. So it wants ascending, so I'm going to click A to Z, and everything flashed because everything got sorted. I didn't have to select the whole range. It automatically knew I wanted to do the whole range. Okay, that was step 16. Step 17. In the July subtotals worksheet, which we're currently in, use the subtotal command to calculate the total sales for each business in the amount column. Display only the subtotal results. Widen columns as needed so that all the data is visible. Okay, this is extremely important because what we're going to do is we're going to tell it that every time it sees a change in business, so it literally will start up here and go, no change, no change, no change, no change, until it comes down here and goes, oh, I see a change. It went from group home to individual. Then what it will do automatically is insert a row and provide me the total for sales over here. That's what subtotals will do for me automatically. Now, the reason I say this is very important is I can tell you probably half the class who, again, doesn't watch the video or read the textbook and tries to do this on their own, they won't sort by business first, even though the instructions specifically told me to do so. The instructions for the case problems might not necessarily tell you that. But you got to do it because if I hadn't sorted this, let me try to do an undo and see if I can get it back. What subtotals would do is every time it sees a change in business, so it would go, oh, there's a change, and you will have a zillion subtotals which will be absolutely incorrect. So you've got to make sure that you sort it first by whatever they're asking for subtotals on. And here they're saying to do it by business. So I go to the data ribbon, and I always have a problem finding it on my ribbon. They've changed it a little bit on where it is. It's one of these buttons here, I believe. That's data validation, consolidate. Where did they do with this? I apologize. They have, on certain ribbons, they have changed things, but it's on the data ribbon, so I'm looking for subtotals. Let me go to the outline drop-down arrow. There's subtotals. So some of you might actually see it on your ribbon. Others might need to go to the outline drop-down arrow and go to subtotal here. Microsoft Excel found a row of data immediately above your table or database. If the row contains column labels, you should include it. So I'm going to say, do you want to include the row? Say yes for sure, and that will include row 1. For some reason, it was not including row 1. Okay, So what I want to do is at each change in, I want to do business so that it literally does what I said earlier. It will go down here until it sees a change in business. So it says use the subtotal command to calculate the total sales for each business in the amount column. So now what I do is I make sure that I have sum right here and I have the amount checked. So again, literally what it's going to do when I click OK is it's going to go down here until it finds a change. And then it's going to say, okay, insert a row, add the sum of the amount column, and I'll know exactly how much it is for group home. Okay? Watch what happens when I click OK. So what it did, if you scroll down, is as soon as it saw a change, as soon as it saw from group home to individual, it put this row in here and gave me the sum of this column, because this is the one that I had checked. The amount was the column I had checked, the field I had checked, and told it to give me a sum. Did the same thing when it came down here, kept going individual, individual, no change, no change. Oh, I see a change, I'll do that again. So it's a pretty neat feature here. But again, imagine if I hadn't sorted it by business and I had all of these as completely different, they weren't all grouped together. That would have not been right, and you should be able to visually see, oh, I didn't do it right, I didn't sort it, because if you have more than, say, 4 or 5 subtotals, something's wrong, okay? I'll just tell you, something is wrong. Okay, then it says, then sort the, blah, blah, blah. Okay, display only the subtotal results. What that means is over here, we've got 3 boxes that also appeared when we did subtotals. 1 shows you just the grand total. 2 shows you all of the individual subtotals and the grand total. Okay? So that's what they want. Display only the subtotals. Widen columns. So I guess if we better keep that. Okay, sorry. Widen columns is needed so all the data is visible. I'm seeing everything, so we're fine. So I'm done with step number 17. All right. Step 18. Based on the July TBL table. So let's go back in the July data worksheet. So we got to go back to the July data worksheet. And one more time, I'm going to save this. I always like to save it periodically, even though the book might not tell me to. So just in case there's a glitch and my computer shuts down, I've got it saved up to this point. Step 18. Based on the July table in the July data worksheet, again, remember the table is still named July TBL up there. Create a pivot table in a new worksheet that shows the total sales amount by day. Format the data area with the currency format. Rename the worksheet as the pivot table. Okay. Just want to let you know, pivot tables is by far the most important feature within Excel. I believe. That's my personal opinion. We have a advisory board that comes to Edison to tell us what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong when we're teaching our courses. And they always say, make sure you teach your students pivot tables. They will use pivot tables out in the real world. So please make sure you completely understand pivot tables. To do a pivot table, I want to be somewhere within my table. Again, it does not matter. I could be in B7. I could be down here in D15. I'm going to go to the Insert ribbon, and there's where we find Pivot Table. Far left option, Pivot Table. I click on that. By the fact that I was somewhere within my table, it has my range. Now, for some reason, it again is not including row 1. I would like to have it do row 1. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete what it has in there. And I'm going to scroll up, and I'm actually going to select A1 down to E. I'm going to select it myself. I didn't like what it had in there because I want my title, my row headings. So I selected the entire range, including row 1. I'm always going to do it as a new worksheet. Always, always, always. Click OK, and we are now in the world of pivot tables. Based on the July, I'm reading the instructions again. Based on the July TBL table in the July data worksheet, create a pivot table in a new worksheet that shows the total sales amount by day. So I'm going to click on day, and it will throw it into my rows. So each row, I have a separate day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Then I'm going to take amount, and I'm going to click, I put a check mark in there, and it automatically put it into my values so that I can now see the sum for each day. Now it says format the date area within with the currency format. So even in a pivot table, you want to format all numbers to be professional. So I select these numbers, go back to my home ribbon, and select currency from the white box. It doesn't say accounting, but it says currency. Okay? Rename the worksheet. Down at the bottom here, it automatically gave it a generic name of Sheet 7. I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to call it Pivot Table Chart Space Sales by Day, and hit enter. Okay, you created your first pivot table. Not too difficult, but think about this. This is what your data look like within a matter of clicks. This is how we're displaying it now. Okay. Step 19. In the pivot table, we'll try that again. In the pivot table chart sales by day worksheet, insert a cluster column pivot table based on the pivot table you created. So as long as we're somewhere within our pivot table, we have two ribbons, Pivot Table Tools, Analysis, and Design. If I go to the Pivot Table Tools Analysis ribbon, I've got Pivot Chart. I'm going to click on that, and much like Chapter 4, we have our different options for the different types of charts that they want us to have. This one they're saying to do the, let me read the instructions again, insert a cluster column, which is what came up by default for me, cluster column. I click OK, and that is a pivot chart based on my pivot table. Okay, move the pivot chart to row 3. So I'm going to move this up a little bit like this. I'll go to C3 to be exact. Put it right there. Remove the legend. Remove the legend. This legend right here that has total is kind of irrelevant, so I'm going to click on it and hit delete to remove it. Change the pivot chart title, which says total right now, so I'm going to click on it, highlight the word total, and replace it with sales space by space day space of week. Click outside of it. Don't hit enter or you're going to add another line to your title. Just click outside of it. And we just completed step number 19. All right, you guys are doing good. Step 20. Based on the July table in the July data worksheet, so back we go again to the sales data in the July data. Oh, I guess we're going to go to July data. Okay, whatever. So we're going to go to the July data. Based on the July table in the July, create a pivot table in a new worksheet that shows amount by sale date. Okay, so again, we're going to go to the Insert ribbon. Again, be somewhere within your table. Pivot table. Okay, again, it doesn't appear to be including row 1. Now, we could do this a little bit differently, I believe. Now, let's select that range again, A1 down to E106. Again, I just want to include my labels to be sure. Okay? Always do it as a new worksheet. Based on the July TBL table in the July data worksheet, create a pivot table in a new worksheet that shows amount by sale date. So we're going to click OK. Again, we're going to pick sale date. Okay, this time, I should say again, last time we picked day, but sale date, now that's going to put every sale date over here, and then we're going to do amount as our values. Okay? Add the business field to the filters area. So I'm going to take business. Now, if you check a box and it doesn't go into the right place that you want it, you can actually put your pointer right on top of it, click and hold down the left side of your mouse, and put it into the right box. They wanted it into filters. So I'm going to click there. Okay? So based on the blah, 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 add the business field to the filters area. Format the pivot table with pivot table style medium 4. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to design, and I'm going to pick pivot table style 4. I'm going to click the More button here. Does it say? It just says Format Pivot. Format the pivot table with pivot style medium 4. So basically the same colors that we've been working with right there. Medium 4. All right. Format the amount field with the accounting format with 2 decimal places. So I'm going to highlight all my numbers here. This time they said accounting. So I'm going to go to the home ribbon, click the $sign. That is accounting. And it gives me 2 decimal places by default. Again, it's always important to format your numbers in a pivot table to make it look more professional. I hate to take a half a point off for not formatting numbers because that's extremely easy to do. Rename. So we're going to double click down here and rename this particular worksheet. This one they're going to have me call it Pivot Table by Sale Date, and hit enter. By the way, I just wanted to point out, they're going to probably demonstrate this later. I don't see it right now, but by putting business into the filter, if you look at row 1, we have business here. I can actually click this down and say I only want to see it for group home, and the data now that I would see in here would be just for group home. Okay. If I want to see it for individual, I would click there, and now all my data in my pivot table is just for the individual business. So that's what that did for me. Now I'm going to click all to just be right where they're having me be. Okay. So that was step 20. We're down to 4 more steps. Step 21. In the pivot table by sale date worksheet, insert a slicer for the business field of the pivot table. So again, on the Pivot Table Tools Analysis ribbon, we have Insert Slicer, very much like we had it earlier in another step. Click that. They want it for business, so I'm going to check business and click OK. And there's my slicer. We've seen something similar to this. Change the slicer height to 1/6. So I'm going to come up here on my Slicer Tools Options ribbon and change that to 1.6. And the width to 1.5. So change this 2 to a 1.5. Okay, that resizes my filter. Format the slicer. So this time I'm going to pick a style. So I want to go to my styles here, and the one they want me to pick is dark 3. Dark 3. So I'm going to use the More button here. There's my dark, and 3 is right there. Okay, everything's looking pretty similar today. Okay. Move the slicer to row 3. So I'll move that right like that. Perfect. Step 22. Use the slicer to filter the pivot table to display only the restaurant and group home sales. So much like we did this before, I'm going to click on restaurant. I'm going to hold down my control key and do group home. And now my pivot table is filtered to only show me that for those 2 businesses. Okay, step 23, we're really winding down now. Based on the July table in the July data worksheet. So let's go back to the July data worksheet. Here we are. Okay, I'm going to scroll up till I see row 1. Create the recommended pivot table. Let's see, based on blah, blah, create the recommended pivot table, sum of amount by sales ID and business. So if I go to insert pivot, there's a recommended pivot table. So don't click on pivot table, but actually just go with the recommended pivot table. Okay, I click on it. It wants me to pick the one that says sum of amount by sales ID and business. Okay, sales ID, and there's my business. So I believe this is the one they want right here. I believe that's it. So I click on it. Oh, let's see, if I put my pointer on it, sales ID by business. Is that what it's asking for? Some of them, yes. So I click OK, and I get a pivot table just based on the recommended one. So if you have no idea how to create it, sometimes you can cheat a little bit. No, not really cheat, but go with what they recommend. Okay. Save the workbook and close. So we're wrapping up. I'm going to save my workbook, all that hard work I just did. I'm going to close it. And I'm just going to say that was the video for Chapter 5, working with Excel tables, Excel tables, pivot tables, and pivot charts. Have a great day. I hope you find these videos very beneficial. Thank you and good night.